It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
What's up? What's happening? Welcome into Take Command Postgame. And Logan, for the first time ever, we are live on both 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980's YouTube pages. What's up, buddy? From FedEx Field.
From FedEx Field, that's right. Not much, man. Just watched a football game today. That was a lot of fun. The fans were going crazy. It was cool to see all of the the legends around the building and saying hi to everybody. So it was a pretty cool day. Again, kind of had you wringing your hands a little bit more than you'd probably like, but that's life, I guess, in the NFL. So.
Yeah, I've got one big takeaway from this game that we'll get to in a second, and obviously many smaller ones. But first, like we said going in, the number one story is the atmosphere. The number one story is kind of how everything is there at FedEx Field. So how was it?
Yeah, so, I got here a little bit late because I was doing the pregame show with Denton, obviously, because you were sick. And then
by the way, feeling better. Be happy to be back next week. Still locked in my COVID cave.
Yeah, good. So walking to the stadium from my car, and you could hear the stadium, and it just was like you were approaching like this beast, from the mile away that I had to park. And it was like, I don't know if I've ever remember the stadium being like that, like kind of up and down, and you could hear it, and it was like it was breathing. It was really, really cool. You walk in, there was like this kinetic energy. You're walking up to the press box, everybody's watching quietly, and the fans are going nuts outside. It rained for a portion of the game, and everyone stayed in their seats. It was a pretty cool atmosphere. It was a pretty cool atmosphere for sure.
Yeah, it definitely came through on television. I mean, especially in the second half as the defense started to get going, like it sounded like a raucous NFL stadium. And you don't get that in every game every weekend. You get that in some of the best atmospheres in the league, and you had that coming through the TV on the Fox broadcast. But to me, Logan, my biggest takeaway is that this was a great reminder in week one that football is a 60-minute game. And we talked so much during the preseason and during training camp about how much better conditioned this team would be for this season and how much in better shape they were. And it was kind of funny watching the game, from my couch and being on Twitter and watching everyone freak out. And I'm just kept looking at the scoreboard going like, this is a one-score game. Like it's 60 minutes. They've got to figure some stuff out, but they're primed to do it. And I think what you saw late in this game is the Commanders playing their absolute best, especially defensively, late in that game as Arizona wore down. You saw the running game on offense get going a little bit more as Arizona started to wear down. And it was a great reminder for all the freaking out that everyone loves to do a quarter into every single game if you follow them along on social media during. And we'll talk about how, and we'll talk about the O-line, and we'll talk about all the other things that need to be cured up from an execution standpoint. But these are long games where there's a lot of twists and turns. And after years and years and years of them turning the wrong way for this franchise, the way that this team has been built and the way this team has been conditioned and calloused through the preseason, if you watch the Commanders Log YouTube series, that's the word that Ron used, it's going to benefit them in close games and late games. And that's what today was. And looky who came out on the right side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a little bit of that freaking out comes from, like that history that you're talking about. People freak out because it's like they've been burned in the past. And you could it felt a little like in the first, I got here in the second quarter. So in the second quarter, it felt a little bit like a traditional game. Like it just wasn't clicking offensively. It didn't feel like there was a lot of energy from the team. And so you're like, man, if this doesn't turn around quickly, like Carolina, like that defense was absolutely ripping around the field and looked like an NFL defense. They were making a ton of plays. They were playing with great energy, and it just felt like it wasn't clicking. And I think that's where that kind of, apprehension and worry and rumination kind of came from the Twitter people. And because you could feel it here in the stadium too, the fans were groaning and like they were like urging the team on. So I definitely think that was part of it. But like you said, it is a long game. And so I think part of it was it's like you're so used to the game ebbing. And then, the saying is ebb and flow, but it's never flowing. It's always just ebbing away, right? And today was a really nice kind of, there was an ebb. It didn't look very good for a minute. They come back out, still ebbing, and then the defense makes that great 3-and-out where, Duran gets the TFL. James and Allen have the TFL. Montez has the forced fumble, and then you could just feel it. I could feel like EB like willing this offense to 7 points. It was like 3 runs, and they were like 3 of the hardest runs I've ever seen in the NFL. Like B-Rob just fighting and clawing and scratching for every inch, and then they score. And like I was just like, that is something that sequence felt a little bit different to me than in years past, because it was like, here's this moment. And in years past, the offense would have kicked a field goal and it wouldn't have been great, but they were just like, we need to score 7 points. And they just seemed hell-bent on doing it, which was pretty cool. So,
yeah, definitely. The way Sam is able to maneuver for both of the touchdowns shows you, I think, the upside. And by the way, how you score in the red zone, a lot of it comes off schedule. Like you either nail your play call on schedule and the right guy's open, or it's like, oh, crap, we're going to have to run around a little bit. And sure enough, that's how they score their 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately, Sam gives up the touchdown on the other end of it on the fumble. Overall, what do you make of his performance in his second career start and his first as a true QB1?
Honestly, it was kind of like what I expected. I know I said like, he'd score, touchdown, but I was like, he'll have a turnover like at some point. I don't know what it'll be, fumble, interception, whatever it is. And he'll be on, he'll look good at moments, and he'll kind of look like a rookie at moments. And I think the thing that really was nice is that in those red zone moments, like you alluded to, like the moment wasn't too big for him. And you saw a guy who's going to make some plays for you. And that first touchdown, I mean, that was tremendous. Like he's kind of falling away. I don't know who he's throwing it to, but he's throwing it to somebody and it gets where it's got to go. And B-Rob ends up with a touchdown. So I think that was nice to see in those like big, gotta have it, critical, like that's such a critical down, like especially with the second one, like it's you got to have that touchdown. If you don't have it, you lose the game. And I think everyone here could feel, I think the staff knew that. For him to kind of be Mr. Composure in that moment was really cool, and stack that on top of the fact that he had kind of a rough first half. Interception, he had the fumble that ended up leading to 6 points, and like that's how the Cardinals ended up with 10 points, right? It was off Sam Howell turnovers. So some good, some bad, but I thought the good was very, very good. And I thought some of those throws, like on the 2-minute drive that ended up with a field goal right before half, I thought he did some really nice stuff there.
By the way, how about Bieniemy being like, gas pedal?
Yeah, we talked about it on the postgame show. Like that is talk about a mindset, bro. Like that is a mindset. Like most coaches, I'd say, I don't know, maybe Kyle Shanahan, maybe Andy Reid are going to run the football twice there. Run the football twice, 55-second clicks off. We're going to live to fight another day, especially after something like that. But talk about having tremendous confidence in your offense, in your young quarterback, and then having tremendous confidence yourself to get everything dialed up the way it needs to get dialed up. So kudos to him, because, like, again, a defining 3 points right there. In a game that's won by 4, that's a big deal. So love that aggressive mindset. Love they were able to execute. And it goes back to what you were talking about in terms of conditioning. And, I think you're talking more about physical conditioning, which is definitely on display. But also I think that has something to do with kind of a mental conditioning and like having been in those situations, like literally every day at training camp, they do a 2-minute drill, and it's a long kind of arduous 2-minute drill. So it just felt like it felt like something that I haven't felt here in a while, which is it felt very matter of fact. It felt like a matter of fact
really
2-minute drive. Like we're going to do a 2-minute drive. Here we go. It wasn't like, oh God, we're freaking out. You know what I mean? And they made plays. They did what they had to do, and loved it. Just I love that element by him.
2-minute should be something that more teams are good at. And I know that sounds crazy because the odds and everything says that they shouldn't, but like teams become very predictable defensively in 2-minute. And so if you know what the defense is going to run, then you can get there with tempo. They're not going to change it. Like, if you know it's cover 2, like it's pretty easy to play in the NFL, or if you know it's cover 4. So like obviously defenses can mix it up, and good coordinators have taught their guys how to mix it up with just enough to throw offenses off. But it is an area where if you can get a team stuck in a coverage, you can attack time and time again, and they're able to do that. I think overall, when I look at how it's exactly what I thought it would be, to your point, like the upside, incredible. You see the playmaking ability, you see some of the big throws. He should have had more yardage in the first half. Logan Thomas had a couple balls I thought he should have held on to. But he also, he's not afraid to give his guys chances either. There's some, I would say, contested balls that are not really nobody's fault on an incompletion. But Sam puts it where his guy's going to get it or it's going to get knocked out, and the defense made good plays. I think the tail of the tape is going to be in some of those situations, did he have other options? And I think that's going to be the biggest thing is when we go back and watch the film, and specifically when you get to the 6 sacks, like it felt like on some of those, it's immediate pressure. On some of those, he's holding the ball for a long time, and you're just going, there's got to be someone open. Obviously, watching from the couch and not getting a whole lot of all 22 replays, hard for me to tell. And obviously, we'll be back or going back and watching that on tape. But even then, like there's game management stuff. The fumble touchdown, the sack is on Wiley. The fumble touchdown is on Sam. Like at that point, you've got to have better ball security. You got to know the time score situation where you are in the field. So there's those learning opportunities. But over all of it, the thing that gives me the most hope for him this season, and the thing that I'm most impressed is he never gets flustered. He's just the same dude the whole time. He's getting rocked out of bounds illegally on a hit that should have been an ejection by Kaiser White. He's not getting caught up in that emotion. He sack fumble, not caught up in that emotion. Celebrates the touchdowns, but doesn't get caught up in it. And he's just a steady guy throughout the entire game. And if he can maintain that over the course of a season, this team's going to be in a lot of games.
Yeah, and I think on the postgame show, I was like, this is a good building block. It's not the cleanest offensive brand of football. I think there's a lot of stuff that you look at and you say you could have done better. I think, kudos to Jonathan again. Like we talked about some of the things he might change and some things he might do differently with Sam Howell at the helm, and given his personnel, I thought they did a great job kind of being a little bit more aggressive with their match coverages and their zones, which made the windows a little bit smaller. I thought they did a great job of disguising stuff. Like you could tell there was times where it looks like a pressure look. They've got this crazy overload look on. They drop out of it. They end up bringing another guy to the weak side. It ends up being just because he's like, I know where the ball's got to go. And then all of a sudden there's guys there and it's like, oh, shoot, And so I just thought that was like Jonathan again, like with a rookie quarterback, like did what you're supposed to do. Confuse them, make them hold the football, put them under a little bit of pressure. And that's what he did. And I think it's a great learning experience because he's going to see more of that kind of stuff each and every week. He's going to see a ton of that when he goes to Denver. But I do think that there's a lot of really positive stuff to take away. And I don't think got to protect the football better. I mean, the Gibson's got to protect the football better. All that stuff.
Bad fumble, man.
Yeah, and
they were clicking too. The thing is, Logan, in the first half, Sam wound up with like 169 yards.
Yeah,
and that was with very little running game. And he only had 202 for the game. And they started to run it more in the second half. Obviously, Robinson, after single-digit carries by a lot in the first half, he finishes with 19 carries on the game. Yeah. And so the balance comes eventually, but it is the kind of thing where, they had great stats in the first half, but they didn't hold on to the football and obviously didn't even get field goals out of it because of the turnovers. And then in the second half, they held on to the football, were more productive from a scoring standpoint accordingly, and didn't really actually do that much offensively.
No, I agree. And, it's been funny. I've been a part of some games like that aren't super clean. You turn the football over a lot. And for whatever reason, you just get more bites at the apple, or you're driving the football longer. So you tend to be a little bit more prolific in terms of your offensive statistic. It's very odd. Like I was in a game where Matt Barkley threw 4 interceptions, and I think we threw for over 450 yards because he's throwing a pick six. We get the ball back. We drive, what I mean? It's just right. There's more stuff to do. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened here, but I do think there is something to that. But yeah, he was productive. I thought there were times where it looked super sharp, looked super clean. And other times it didn't. And I think that's what we were trying to impart to our listeners was there's a reason, there's a precedent in the NFL that young quarterbacks don't do well. And a little bit of it's because defensive coordinators can just show them a whole bunch of different stuff, basically flashing a bunch of lights in their face while they're trying to play quarterback. And it's enough to offset them. And I think that's what happened here a little bit today. But to your point, the composure of Sam Howell was such that he was able to kind of, in those definitive moments, make plays. And I also wanted to bring this up real quick. I thought there was a really nice, I think the word is maturity by EB, to kind of identify what was going on with the offense and say what was going on with the offense and what was going on with the defense and say, hey, we can shift this into a slower gear. We don't need to be trying to put up 50 points. We need to score. We have to score. We need to be a little bit more methodical. And I think that's what you see in the second half. kind of shorten the game, let the defense make plays for you, and really lean into that. And I think to their credit, because sometimes that doesn't pay off, the defense totally stood up and did an excellent job with that. So.
Yeah, so let's talk specifically about the decision late. It's 3rd and 6. They're in the red zone. It's already a 33-yard field goal. A lot of teams now are more likely to say, like, hey, let's try to win this. We're going to win this game right here. I thought they made the exact correct decision and had no business. Yep. Yeah, so it's already, at that point, you run it, you waste another 40 seconds off the clock, you make it a 4-point game. I don't think Arizona's offense has shown that they can score a touchdown on you remotely. A field goal is a different story. Like if you just got to drive the ball between the 20s and then kick a long field goal and send it to overtime, that's a different story. Or win the game. That's a different story. Yeah. 4 points and the less time to do it, to score the touchdown, to me is the right move there 10 times out of 10, especially with the way this defense was playing at that point in the game. Any disagreement, any thought of doing anything otherwise?
There was a little bit of the boo birds going on here at the stadium when they made that decision, but I kind of was like, Ron's a defensive coach. The defense has been playing lights out. You look at Carolina's offensive production, and they did some stuff defensively that I thought was elite. That was like, man, this team is a winning defensive football team. But offensively, I don't think at any point they showed anything that made you go, they're going to be able to drive the length of the field versus our defense. I didn't see one element of that. No. I'm a little surprised they didn't try to take more shots. I will say my heart kind of skipped a beat when they took that shot off the play action to Wilson on the sideline where he kind of jumped up, and I thought he was going to catch it, but he kind of like was loose, and then Fuller punched it out. Like that would have been a dagger there, obviously. But to your point, like, and to the general point, like they didn't do anything offensively, Arizona, that made you think, yes, in this moment when they got to have it, they're going to do it with Joshua Dobbs at the quarterback position. So they're not going to score a touchdown. The best they're going to do is kick a field goal. You know what I'm saying? Let's play the odds here. And while like the purest offensive mind in me was like, go for the touchdown, I was like, this is where the analytics gets a little bit funny, because analytically, go for the touchdown. Like 9 times.
Or just go for the first down, right?
Yeah, or whatever.
Score, right? You just have to get a first down, and then you can run out the clock.
But this is like one of those times where, like, I think you brought up the analogy with Sean McVay and like his right guard blocking Aaron Donald, or whatever the analogy is.
Yeah, that's what Sean used to always talk about, right?
And it's like that was this game. It was like, analytically, you probably should go for that and kill the game. But the way this game is flowing, this field goal does exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I have a more apt sample than the entirety of NFL history. I have this game of Cardinals offense versus this game of Washington defense, and specifically the last 3 drives where we have been dominant defensively, and our pass rush is starting to murder their offensive line in a must-pass situation. That's easy math there. And the other thing too is, because I had someone on Twitter, and again, I hate to reference like someone on Twitter, but like there's a counter argument of like, well, look, it's already a 33-yard field goal. Try for it if you just roll Sam out. He either slides or if he throws out of bounds, he throws out of bounds. You lose 40 seconds. The game ends without the Cardinals offense ever getting the ball back, really. And that when you fast forward a drive, an extra 40 seconds, Dobbs has an extra time to try to move him down the field, all that kind of stuff. And so that's where you see when all of a sudden they truly do have to burn all their timeouts, where those 40 seconds and how much one single, pass or run decision can affect the game. The game essentially ends as Tressway kicks the ball in the air. And so that is, to me, that was easily the right decision. All right. Beyond that, what else stands out from this game that we want to talk about here?
There we go. I think for me, it was really just the defensive line and how dominant they were. I think they were so on it. And, I do think that Arizona Cardinals offensive line is they're not a great group, but they're not a bad group. And I think for them, and I think, one of the things Kyle said this to me, Shanahan, he said it to me about when he was in Atlanta and he was like evaluating some player. And he was like, the moment I knew he was the real deal was when he started making plays in crunch time to seal the game. And I felt like I saw that today for the first time in a long time from this group. Like there are times where you see John make a play, then there's a first down, and you see Payne make a play, then there's a first down. But it was like that 3-play sequence, man. That's what you want to see from the best unit on your team. Hey, we just had a rough offensive sequence there. We punted. Arizona's in a pretty good field position. They're at like the 40-yard line, and you get a TFL right out the gate from James and John. They're in on it together. Payne does a great job the very next play. They're in 3rd and 25, and then Montez gets a strip sack. Like, it's just like you couldn't have said the places where our draft capital has been invested, where our money's been invested. That is why right there. And so I think that to me is something that really sticks out. It is just that definitive. That is a definitive moment, a defining moment for a position group, and really the turning point in the game. Quite honestly.
Yeah, I thought they were incredible all day long. Montez shows you what he is. Payne was insane. Allen has a big play and a big moment. He said he didn't know Dobbs still had the ball when he made that sack, which makes sense because it was like a spinning reverse karate chop.
Yeah,
it just so happened he's so freaking strong that he just chopped down a grown NFL man. And it was like, I got a sack. Oh, cool, I got a sack. That man had the ball still. And then, man, Jay Smith-Williams played incredible today. He was all over the place, up the field, stringing runs out, like pushing the pocket. Casey came in, and those two guys were so good last year without Chase, and with Chase out again and probably out next week. Like, Casey came in and with his snaps did a lot with them.
Yeah,
it just shows you the depth of this team. Ironically, after a much hyped preseason, one of the big plays of the game comes because Andre Jones Jr. doesn't set an edge early. Didn't really see him a lot later after that, and it's just as a reminder, like, you get out there for real in a real NFL football game, and the benefit of having guys who have been there and played at a high level, not the same level as like Montez, not what you'd expect from Chase when he gets back.
Right.
But James and Casey have played at a real high level, and those two dudes just did their job to a T today. And as long as they do that, those other guys are going to eat. Like, if you don't have like an easy weakness opposite of or on that one other spot in the line, those guys are going to eat, and they did. And not only that, I think it helped the linebacker level today. I think by and large, like, they played better than a lot of people were anticipating, because they did have kind of a rough summer in patches. So I thought the front seven in general, a pretty solid day today. We'll see what happens, against a better front set or a better group next week in Denver. But they did their job today.
Yeah, and I think also it just shows you what happens like when that front group is playing really, really well, because it's not even John and Payne. Like, Abdullah Anderson flashed a bunch. John Ridgeway flashes. Like, you're just like,
they were real.
You're like, holy cow! Like
that Cinco package too. Like, a couple of Payne's big plays came in the Cinco package.
Yeah,
and it just shows you, like, if you can get Payne 1-on-1, good luck.
In a 3 technique, like, it's dirty, and you can't get help from the center because you got a nose. It's a dirty package. And I actually, I thought Jack was a little bit more aggressive with some of his coverage structures. And it's entirely because of Joshua Dobbs. It's entirely because of that. So I think, to your point, as the quarterback play improves, can that group, specifically the linebackers, still play at a really high level? Because right now, like, this was like a high school offense. Like, high school is a strong word, but it was a very, very limited in terms of what they could do. Like, they were running keepers, they were running runs, they were running screens, and it was like everybody in the stadium was like, okay, they're not going to push the football down the field. And when they do, it's not going to be an effective thing. So I think as this goes and they play better protection packages, like, can that group remain dominant? I think they can, for the reasons that you just said. But that was something that really stuck out to me today, is that that group from John to Casey Toohill, like that, and everyone in between there, they all did their part and were productive, and I think totally elevated that defense.
One other just thing to note real quick, because this is now my beat, and then I want to name like one or two things that we're looking forward to watching the tape for before we get out of here. So questions that we have remaining after this game. But Cameron Cheeseman bounced another snap. Yes, I saw it. No, I don't know why it's still a problem. It's ridiculous. That can't be happening still. That's the long snapper report. Stay tuned for more.
Yeah, that's tough, because it actually it skipped like a stone.
Yeah,
it wasn't even like it was
the same that happened in the Baltimore game.
Yeah, that's tough. That's gonna make you, because you lose games doing that stuff. And thank God Tress is amazing at what he does. He's able to scoop that up and get it down like with the palm of his hand. Great job, but holy cow.
Yeah, not ideal. But yes, since that has become the thing that people come tweeting me about, yes, I did see it. No, not good. All right. What are the things that you walk away from going, I can't wait to watch the tape and learn more about X? I got one or two. You got one or two, I'm sure. And then we'll get on out of here.
Yeah, so for sure the offense, just looking at like where the leaks were, you know what I mean? And what I mean by that is I thought they did some stuff really efficiently, but I also thought there were times where, like I said, like Sam misidentifies something or they match a concept really well. Is that play call? Is that, how you're coaching that? Like I want to kind of just delve into that in a little bit more detail. And I think the other thing I'd like to look at is the back end of this group. Like how did Forbes play? I know he had that PBU at the end of the game to kind of seal it.
Love that.
But how did he play? How did Fuller play? How did that whole back end play? Because I think they flashed at times, and Cam made some excellent tackles. But how are they communicating? All that kind of. So that to me, it's always the front when you're watching it like just jumps out because they're always making these plays. But the back end, like a lot of that stuff is Josh Dobbs. Like there's times where he's tucking it because the coverage is correct or it's tight, or who had the PBU on Zach Ertz. Like there's a lot of guys that did a really good job. And I just want to kind of get into some more detail on that. But yeah, offensive kind of detail, and then back end, like what's going on exactly there.
Yeah, no, I think the sacks specifically, like what happened there is that guy's open that Sam's not seeing. Is that offensive line breakdowns? Is that bad protection calls? I know Ron was very, very careful post game. I mean, you have to be super careful. It's not rocket science of an answer, but he's like, I'm not commenting on any of that till we watch the tape. Yeah. I am curious to watch the tape and see what we see. I'd also like to know how Terry McLaurin played. He had a couple big catches, but he, when I look at the distribution of targets, I love Samuel being kind of on schedule, 5 targets. We know Jahan's going to be a feature. He has 7. Logan Thomas has 8 targets. We know he's going to be a feature. Terry only has 4. I do feel like there may not have been quite as much urgency today. It is week 1. EB knows the opponent. They've certainly got stuff for Terry that they're going to use. And I'm sure on some games we'll lean heavier on him, but I'm curious kind of what kind of game he had, because I certainly hope throughout the year that he is much higher on the target list and that we don't go through another year of going, where is Terry? He's so good. How is he still a 1,000-yard receiver? Because it feels like he never gets the ball as much as he should.
Right, and I think we both acknowledge that the tight end's going to get a lot of targets in this offense, especially with a young quarterback, and especially with how big and athletic they all are, because it's easy to see them. You can just see them. You can see them from the press box, So it's I think that's part of why that is, and I do think it's just easier in certain offenses to get guys the balls, and I think this is one of them. I think this is an offense where you're coming from Kansas City where you're getting the tight end 15 targets a game, and it's just it just seems like a big part of that. Like even the catch that Logan Thomas had in the 2-minute drive, like that's a Travis Kelce special. Motion to a bunch, run kind of that crossing corner, and make that play. So I kind of wonder how many plays Terry actually played, like how many he was on the field for. I think that'll be interesting given his foot and how they view that. But Terry is kind of a funny guy in that regard. Like he never gets as many targets as you think. And, I don't think that's a good or bad thing. Also, I think it's a feature of the offense, which I also said on the postgame show. I think it's a feature of this offense, this West Coast offense, is that sometimes stuff's taken away. The ball's got to go someplace else. And that's how it works. So,
and that's the benefit of having as much talent as they do. But I would definitely love to see, they found a way to get Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce the ball in Kansas City when everyone knew they wanted the ball. And I'm sure that there are ways with, alignments and where you line Terry up and stuff that they will do that.
Well, Terry,
certain times
to that point, had a really simple, it was really easy. So they're in a 3-by-1, tight end to the right, tight end's the 1. They motion Terry across to right outside Logan Thomas. And then Logan runs a spray release dig. So he outside releases, picks Terry's guy. He runs a
switch release for Terry,
a clear, I guess it's a clear for the dig, and he's wide open. And that's an easy touch for him, easy game plan touch. So I think there are definitely more of those to be had. Also, I do think that if the offense is on a little bit better rhythm, you know what I mean? It's probably those touches probably come more effectively. And so what I mean by that is you're always kind of going first, second, and then we're in a third down situation. First, second, third down situation. And as you know, those calls aren't all the same. They're not all created equally. So I think that's something as the offense finds its rhythm, I think you'll see Terry's touch distribution kind of be where it's supposed to be a little bit more effectively.
Yeah, I'm not worried after 1 week, but kind of putting a pin in it. And I'm curious how he played and where Sam was looking. And, all that kind of stuff, because it is something that's been a storyline here for as long as Terry has been here. All right. For more from us, make sure you're subscribed to the Take Command podcast, wherever you listen to your pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the free Odyssey app, of course. And then we are on 106.7 The Fans YouTube page for full episodes. I also post clips on my page at Craig Hoffman for the YouTube audience. Other than that, of course, make sure you're following us on social at the Team 980 at 106.7 The Fan. Logan's on Instagram at Logan_Paulsen82. I'm on Twitter at Craig Hoffman. I'll see y'all tomorrow on the radio, 4 to 7 on the Team 980 for the Hoffman Show. And we'll be back with our full tape review breakdown of this game coming up later this week. I think that pod will be out on Tuesday or Wednesday. I got to figure out when we're going to do that. When it's out and when we record, I get the dates mixed up. Also, I kind of have a little bit of COVID brain, and now I've been talking for 30 minutes. So we'll see you for the next pod. But if you subscribe, you get it automatically. So that's why you should do that. For Logan, I'm Craig. Thanks for watching here on the live stream and listening to the pods. We'll see y'all in a couple days.